think I understand. I don't think I understand. I don't think I understand.
Shock the system.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Season 7, Episode 13 of the Phenomenon Known to All, a Saturday afternoon's main event. If you do not know who I am, dumb, stupid, blind, or plain irrelevant, I suggest you go ahead, go back to school, go into your library, get the biggest dictionary you can find, preferably Merriam-Webster, and look me up under the word phenomenal. Ladies and gentlemen, it is I, the phenomenal one, in here. Today on Saturday afternoon's main event, we have a lot in store for you guys. But look, we have other introductions. Let's not get us twisted. We have our co-host, the one and only limousine riding, jet flying, kiss stealing, wheeling, dealing, son of a gun who is not having a hard time holding his alligators down, but a few rants. Give him 2 claps and a peep snatch.
Woo!
There we go.
Yes, I am here, Deep Voice Dynamo, sitting here once again with another week of Saturday afternoon's main event. And I think if you are a fan of our show, you're going to enjoy it. Probably for the wrong reasons, but maybe for the right reasons, depending on your side of things. So stick and stay. You'll see what we're talking about.
Sounds about right. Exactly right, peeps. But it seems like you're in good spirits. I'm in good spirits. You know there's one more person who's in good spirits. And that's the franchise himself. The one and only other side of the co-host. Right from the other end of the pond. The one and the only Corey Richmond. What are you doing, man? Too sweet,
Well,
back to you.
Yes.
I am the Pepsi of the. No, I'm kidding.
There we go.
Already getting started today, boy.
Exactly.
Woo. I guess you have an idea of the tone of our show today. So,
Yeah, it's going to be one of those.
yeah.
I've always was a big fan of Miramax until the end. Great being on as always. You know, rocking some old school T-shirts today with a little Humperdinck Brute Squad. You know, the one and only Andre the Giant. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because it was another wild week of wrestling, and it's one of those times where I wish I had my own podcast again. And of course, you can listen to old episodes of the Workshoot Wrestling Podcast wherever you listen. So I appreciate everyone who's checking out the show, and more than ready to go and have a little fun about the wonderful world of TK.
It's just TK. Jeez.
Yes.
Well, look at this. We're going to go ahead and talk about TK. There's one way to start on Wrestling Crash Course today. And you see, we're just going to go ahead and jump straight into it. Some will go ahead and follow suit a little moment after this. Don't even worry about it, guys. But look, the fact of the matter is this. He wants to go ahead and speak on TK. We're going to go ahead and even up the ante and speak on TKO. Ladies and gentlemen, it is reported that Vincent Kennedy McMahon, alongside a glorious president known by the name of Nicholas Khan, are about to sell their TKO shares. They're putting them up on the market. All of them. That's okay, understandably so. We need to get him the F out, right? Throw back to 2002. But
Yes.
damn, Nick, what do you do? Peeps, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's starting to look like one of two things.
Okay.
One, Nick Khan was only brought in to kind of stabilize WWE, and he was, because of some of the deals that he brokered for WWE in helping to facilitate this, the sale of WWE and get them in a higher tax bracket, so to speak. He was given shares within TKO Holdings to the tune of 234,424. That's a lot if you cash all of that out.
22 million to be precise.
Yes, Vince McMahon has over 8 million that is now what's left, and what he's got on the table is if he sells all of that stock, which is what's going to happen, it's all put up for sale. And usually when you put stocks up for sale, that usually means within a week, 2 weeks, they're going to be gone. There's almost no way of like just pulling back away from it. Usually you're putting them up for sale, they're going to be sold. So basically, Vince, his shares amount to close to $770 million. So he's going to be swimming in his own money bin, or one of his many money bins. Nick Khan is basically going to be doing his own thing. And a lot of people are kind of wondering, well, the timing of this is really auspicious as to far as why we have this happening. And I think a lot of people are going back to the controversy of the Janelle Grant lawsuit and wondering, as she accused within the lawsuit, that Nick Khan kind of helped facilitate some of the things that Vince McMahon was able to do within that company. He's named as part of the lawsuit. So I wonder if that has something to do with it. Or was he initially going to sell all of his shares and move on from WWE at some sort of time anyway? That's the intriguing part of this, I think, that we have probably not delved into yet as another angle that there probably is a possibility of being the case of. But going forward, we're going to find out more information, and I think it'll be telling as to who actually buys those shares and who takes over as WWE president going forward if he does, in fact, leave his post and is just selling his shares.
Of course. Corey, what are your thoughts?
I'm slightly different than Peeps Nate on this, and I do apologize for someone of your age and your wisdom. But I think that this is a S ton of money for Nick Khan, and if someone offered that much money to me, I'm taking the money and saying, oh, that's one hell of a payday. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think that the rumors of, Vince having his non-compete of being able to create another company in September of this year is a slight story. I think Vince is out because I think that all the things that have been done over the last couple of years that have come out have stained him within the networks. I don't think he'd be able to get another deal. And there really are no people out there of major significance other than a Bill Goldberg who said his comments this week. That would even be someone who are interested that would maybe make networks care. But I think that the Vince part is he wants more money. And this legal defense and everything else that's going on, I think it's time for him to go. I think the Nick Khan thing is more of just, this is a lot of money. I'm taking the money. I don't think he's going anywhere.
Say no more. Say no more. Hey, well, look, in that case, we're going to go ahead and not spend too much time on this because, look, there's a lot of other things in the world of TK and TKO that we have to go ahead and get to. But within the sense of TKO, we move to the world of WWE. Cameron Grimes has been released. Another one of the add-ons to the WWE releases that have been happening since last week after Friday Night SmackDown. Peeps, with that being said, Cameron Grimes going ahead and leaving. We know that, look, it's never really over. You got MLW, you got Impact, you got, for me, I'd be happy to see him at Impact. Trevor Lee back once again. Look, I'm all in favor of it. But then again, what are your thoughts on these continuing and then us hearing that, Paul Levesque was the one who signed off on all of these releases?
Well, it's rather unfortunate because I think all of us with Cameron Grimes coming out of NXT, we all had high hopes. The angle that they did where he invested in a bunch of Bitcoin and became filthy rich. They put the $1 million belt on him, had that feud with LA Knight, would look like he was going to do something. And then they brought him up to the main roster and they just didn't know what to do with him. I don't think it had anything to do with him per se. I don't think it had anything to do with his talent because he's a talented guy. He's a really good wrestler and he connected, or you've heard me say this many times before. He connected with the fans on an organic level. So knowing that he's been around, he's been, like we said, we talked about in TNA, was a well-respected wrestler. And if you listen to all of the tweets and the comments of other wrestlers that are in WWE that are just gushing with respect and adulation and love for the guy, you know that he is well-respected. And if he has a chance to come back to WWE at some point, I think Triple H will bring him in with open arms. I think that it's this kind of reminds me of the Rockstar Spud / Drake Maverick style of it, where they didn't want to get rid of him, but they thought they had to. And I watched a response that he did on social media where he talked about his love for the business and that his father wasn't able to see where he got as popular as he was able to get to. And he's just a really good guy, a real great personality. And I think he'll bounce back on his feet and he probably the second he got cut, he probably had 5 or 6 other companies knocking on the door, asking for his services. So he's not going to be unemployed long. He's going to find work. He's going to find his place. And then eventually, I think one day he will be back in WWE.
Definitely so. Definitely so. Taekwon out here says TNA for peeps used to mean tents, nets, and arrows.
I got to stop looking at the chat as we do the show because I think Phenomenal One saw my reaction when that came up, and I saw that I almost broke there for a second.
Yeah, I had to put it out because it was just like, for me, it caught my attention the minute I saw it. I was just like, Taekwon texted, great. Okay, let's see what this is. And the minute I see you kind of losing it, I'm like, well, Corey doesn't laugh much, so if he's laughing, then this got to be funny. So yeah, listen, peeps. Yeah, you still taking shots. It's okay, man.
I understand.
It's all right. It's all right, Corey. But in hindsight, what do you think about Cameron Grimes going ahead and being able to thrive in different other companies? Whoever goes ahead and picks them up.
I second pretty much everything that Peep said over there in regards to it's an ugly situation. Unfortunately, cuts have to happen. I don't always enjoy. I'm not to promote another podcast, but I don't always enjoy everything that's said on Busted Open. But Busted Open Radio had Trevor Lee on. I believe it was this past Monday after the release was came down, and he went and basically said that people with higher people in WWE the week before said you're cool. You're gonna have a job here for life. It's an ugly business. Things do happen. I think that AEW has way too bloated of a roster to bring him in right now. I think he'd be a great fit for that junior heavyweight type of division. I think he would do great in New Japan as a best of the Super Juniors, maybe. I know that's coming up, so he wouldn't be able to be in this year's. But I think TNA is the right spot for him, at least at the moment. I think he can strive. I know he's not as big, height and weight-wise like as a Drew McIntyre or Bobby Lashley, of course. But sometimes going away makes them want you more. And I think he could come back. I thought that the Grimes character was a good character, but you know what? Once again, he said in this Busted Open interview was he went to SmackDown and Barry Corbin basically said, great seeing you, but they kind of gave me your gimmick. So it was kind of a disaster from day one. Hopefully he's able to go and get a fresh start and make it back either where his dream was at WWE or an AEW or like a New Japan sooner than later.
Most definitely. Well, we wish Cameron Grimes, also known as Trevor Lee, all of the best. From there, we move to the last piece of news for Wrestling Crash Course. The mayor of London, Sahid Khan, not Shad Khan, not relating to any of the Khans in the world of professional wrestling, just another prominent Khan. He says that he wants WrestleMania to be in the city of London. Now look, we've all seen that WrestleMania was supposed to be in Minnesota. Then they kind of backtracked and kind of started spearheading for Las Vegas. Most preferably, it looks like Las Vegas for next year's. But with that being said, it seems like Minnesota's not getting the hump of any WrestleMania. With that being said, peeps, when we had talked about 2 to 3 weeks back, you had said there is no shot that they put WrestleMania in Wembley. But with this being put out now, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that snowball's chance in hell has kind of changed somewhat. I think there's more now, I think, of a motivation. It initially started like a troll job with Triple H or John Cena coming out and saying, why don't we get WrestleMania in London? Wink, wink. And then the groundswell of support that we saw on camera from the fans and finding out that, that would be pretty good. We haven't done a premium live event in London since SummerSlam 1992. Let's get something going over there. And what we see are the fans in London, particularly, have a thirst for American professional wrestling of any sort, whether it's TNA if they came over, or if New Japan did something where they came over, but mostly WWE and their brand of sports entertainment, pro wrestling, whatever description you want to call what their brand of wrestling is. They're getting more into the wrestling aspect of it. And if you want to do something big, as we've seen and heard from the higher ups in WWE saying that they want to have WrestleManias in bigger open stadium arenas as opposed to Northeast or in places where it gets cold. We know London can get quite cold and can get quite rainy. So if they want to be able to do it, plus the time zone difference, because it's a 6 hour difference between the East Coast and in the UK, that would be the logistical issue going forward of having people get up for a WrestleMania sometime in the afternoon or maybe 12 o'clock to see it at 6. That'll be something they have to work on. But can it happen? It probably could.
I mean, peeps, truth be told, I mean, look at it this way. We've seen a lot of different, like sporting events happen, around a certain afternoon time in our heyday. I mean, for God's sakes, there are about, what, 2 to 300 million people that watch the World Cup every single 4 years.
Yeah.
And like usually when it takes place in like different cities, usually
I mean, they're going to France next week for Backlash.
So I mean, if that doesn't tell you enough, I think they're past like, oh, you know what? Maybe nobody's gonna want to watch. Peeps, it's WrestleMania. I mean, especially if it's happening at Wembley, I think a lot of people want to see those, optics and everything like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, look, even bypass the time and like whatever it might be within like travel or whatnot, I think a WrestleMania in Wembley would work.
Yeah.
Corey, what are your thoughts?
I'll be long-winded as usual. That's my specialty. But as a New Yorker, this hurts me to say, London has become the Chicago equivalent of wrestling. London is a hotbed for wrestling internationally, just like Chicago is a hotbed of wrestling in the United States now. At one time, it was Madison Square Garden. Now the hotbed of wrestling is Chicago in the United States. It's a shame to say. But I think that one of the things that we're forgetting here is this con is running for office, and he said, if I get reelected or if I get elected, one of the first things on the agenda I will do is try to go and get WrestleMania. So this is kind of a way for him to go and get elected, which is, hey, politicians do what politicians do. We have enough of that in our country. But I think the idea is it would be a great spectacle. I don't think that AEW should be fearing the idea that they'll lose their Wembley deal, because I think that's something that is kind of in place. But it would be interesting to see a WrestleMania in another country. What will be the reception media-wise? What will be the reception of the American fan who's been so spoiled to have 40 of them in a row? I think it would be interesting if it's there. The time change, we all get used to this type of stuff. Like you said, with the Olympics, with the World Cup, we all gripe for 10 minutes, but then we're like, all right, I guess we're watching a Saudi show. Not me, because, different things, but we'll watch a Saudi show at 6 a.m. in the morning or wherever it is. So we'll get used to what we have to do because we're trained as wrestling fans to do is what it is. But the last point is, I do think this is really interesting, the idea of how hot WWE is right now, that it sounded like they were almost settling for Minnesota, which Minnesota has a proud history of wrestling there. All of a sudden, they saw how big the press conference was for Rock and Roman and everything in Vegas, and it almost turned on an idea, we can sell out Reliance Stadium. Why not? I think next year's WrestleMania will be in Vegas more than likely. It's a warm weather. There's a lot to do there. They're mostly going to do Raw and SmackDown in the Sphere, and a lot. They're already starting the stuff with NXT being in the UFC, Performance Center equivalent. So I think a lot of these things are heading that way with the TKO deal. It's not home basing in Vegas, but a lot more stuff possibly happening there in the very near future.
Yeah. And I also think that the fans in London already have kind of trained themselves to stay up really early in the morning to watch WWE premium live events and AEW pay-per-views when they're on. So it's kind of like that give and take of what they're going to do when it comes to watching and being there. They'll figure out the logistics, I think, especially now much more so. The other point about this is, as we talk about Wembley Stadium, is something that people may not know about, or maybe they do and it's not being brought up as much. Who is the person that owns Wembley Stadium? A person by the name of Shad Khan. So I would find that rather interesting. I could imagine the Thanksgiving dinner that Tony and Shad would have over WWE maybe going to Wembley Stadium at some point, if that was indeed the case.
Got you on that. Wait, he actually does own Wembley?
I believe so. Shad Khan, I believe, owns. I know he owns I believe he owns Manchester United, the team itself. So
Because I
yes,
know it's either that. I know Tony owns Fulham. Not fully known on the fact of what if he. Yo, Corey, can we fact check this?
I'm working on it.
You're working on it. Great. See, this is what we have the AEW show for, guys. Go ahead,
yes,
Corey. What does it seem like from your end?
yeah. He bought. I believe he bought it for something like $800 million some time ago. So yeah, he owns Wembley Stadium.
Well, damn.
I'm looking
Which
at it.
explains a reason why All In was able to do their show there in London.
Ain't that something?
Yeah.
Corey, you ain't finding nothing.
No, I don't. Every year, the blah blah. The FA Cup final.
Oh wait, he did 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Yup. Yeah, he bought. Yup. Uh-huh.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What, Wembley Stadium?
Yeah, stadium. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not Wembley where they held All In.
Yeah. But he can bring any number of people over there and do a show there if they want. So
Oh, okay.
Wait, so what's the difference between Wembley and Wembley Stadium? Is it the same location? Or am I
No.
bugging?
You're bugging. Wembley Stadium is a much smaller little piece of heaven than
Huh. Ain't that something? Well, geez. Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, the more you know today
Shad
on
Khan
wrestling,
is super duper rich. And if that's the case, that I just find it interesting what everybody that seems to be in the sphere of this story, his last name is Khan. Go figure.
Khan's ruling wrestling. Jeez.
Yes.
You love to see it. You really do love to see
there's
it.
more than one Khan family in wrestling. Yeah.
Oh, good grief.
Oh,
We're going to give him his own Titantron now?
Can you imagine? Can you
Oh,
imagine?
that would be
Dear
funny.
Lord. Anywho, ladies and gentlemen, that marks the end of Wrestling Crash Course. You guys want to keep up with any other social media news or updates? All you got to do is one thing and one thing only. Follow us on Instagram at SaturdayAfternoons_main event and on Twitter at SaturdayMain. Well, look, guys. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and move in to the next topic for today. And that is our review for AEW Dynasty. Taking place this past Sunday. Of course, I believe in St. Louis's Chaifetz Arena.
I think it's the Chaifetz Arena.
The Chaifetz Arena. Got you.
Yes.
Got you. Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, we have a new AEW World Champion. We still have the same international champion.
Wait, we have a new AEW World Champion? Because you wouldn't have noticed that if you watched Dynamite. I mean,
basketball, buddy.
whoo! Oh, good grief. But yes,
good Lord.
continue, Phenomenal One.
Continue? Say no more. I will, peeps.
Yes.
But yes, Swerve Strickland, new AEW World Champ. Adam Cole can finally walk on 2 feet. Julia Hart is no longer reigning, defending undisputed TBS champion. I wasn't gonna go ahead and do a Paul Heyman for that. Come on, Corey, please calm down, man. I saw the look on your face. You were just like, why did he say this with enthusiasm? I know, but look. With that being said, what were your thoughts on AEW Dynasty? We won't start with peeps this time. We'll start with our glorious AEW show, the franchise himself, Corey Richmond. Corey, what were your thoughts on Dynasty?
It was an elite paper. No, I thought it was. I thought it was a tremendous. I mean, I don't know if I would say Revolution was better, but I think that they're close. It's a hard thing, and I don't know if we'll get into this tribalism of AEW fans versus WWE, where saying it wasn't WrestleMania, didn't have to be. I thought top to bottom, besides the Jericho match, I thought was a top-notch pay-per-view. I think you had one of the best North American wrestling matches of all time with Ospreay and Danielson. I thought the Swerve title change was great. I thought top to bottom, I thought it was really good. And I'm sure we'll get to this, but more and more the conversation we had a couple of weeks ago about if Tony Khan should have shown the footage, it looks more like it was the right decision. Jack Perry's back. We've got a lot of fun going on. But, you know, I thought it was a tremendous show.
Got you. Peeps, what were your thoughts on Dynasty?
I have to say, from top to bottom, with a couple of exceptions, this was a great pay-per-view. From top to bottom, the in-ring stuff that I saw in this show was top-notch. We know that anybody that has either seen this show or has heard talk and chatter about people that have seen this show, you're going to hear nothing but praise for Ospreay and Danielson. Outside of that, because that match itself lives in its own bubble, on its own island, and I'm going to put that to the side. You see the fact that the way I'm talking about it, you see the face light up. All of the other matches, for the exception of the Jericho match, and the Jericho match was not horrible. I thought it was going to be terrible.
It just went too long.
But it wasn't. It was better than what I thought it was going to be. But in general, from top to bottom, I thoroughly enjoyed all the matches on this show. The way that the spacing and the grouping of the card was in certain aspects of it, and the way that they placed certain matches in on the card, I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. And here's the good thing. Like Corey just said, it didn't have to be WrestleMania. Heck, it didn't even have to be like Double or Nothing or any other big name pay-per-view that you're used to seeing. The one thing about AEW's pay-per-views that they seem to get right is that they seem to book for the fans that have come to see the show. And in doing so, the card usually shows up to be grade A from top to bottom. You're going to have a hit or a miss here or there. You're going to see a certain match that's either out of place or not booked in a certain spot, or a surprise match that you wouldn't expect was going to start off the show. But in general, overall, based on the things that have happened in AEW between injuries and other things that we will probably talk about later on in the show, what you got from AEW Dynasty was a gem of a pay-per-view. Without question.
All right. Well, look at that. 2 men out of the show today have said that Dynasty was a great and a tremendous show. I'm going to be the first one to disagree. Guys, I'm fucking with you. Guys, I'm playing.
I was about to say,
have to go
I digress. I was about to say, what's wrong?
Nah, bro. No. I'm above the mindset that, look, AEW Dynasty within itself has to be one of my most favorite pay-per-views of the year. It's definitely, if I had to give it a rating out of 10, I would give it close to an 8.9. The reason it gets 8.9 and not 9.0, that other 0.1 is due to the fact that Jericho match pissed me the hell off. I'm not gonna lie to you. Just why? But
We're all under the learning tree now.
hey, I hate it. To hell with it. But when you speak on Dynasty, I think now, anytime somebody will bring up AEW Dynasty 2024, people will instantly think Ospreay versus Danielson. And I mean, good Lord. What a match. Yes. I don't always agree with Meltzer. I hate the man's guts. But a 6.5-star rating isn't bad. I sit there and I look at it like this match had it all. And for some reason, I see a lot of people on, social media talking about enough time has passed. Oh, this match was better than that match. That match was better than this match. And I'm just like, y'all can't enjoy professional wrestling for what it is. And the other match that they're talking about, of course, is the main event of Mania Night 2. And I sit there and I'm like, look, you look at it this way. One match was storyline driven, and it gave you all you wanted to see within a storyline aspect. And then the other one was definitely all hits, no misses, because that match delivered on every single aspect, whether it was moves, technical wrestling. I mean, for God's sakes, Ospreay versus Danielson, if not by far, one of the greatest matches of this millennium. and this is going ahead and going over Okada Omega 1 at Wrestle Kingdom, I believe 11. This is going over the 2 matches that Ospreay had with Omega already. One being at Wrestle Kingdom 17 and the other one being at AEW Forbidden Door, I believe, right?
Yes.
Okay, so for me, this is sitting there going ahead and putting this match over all those other matches because by far one of the greatest showings from 2 of the greatest professional wrestlers of the modern era. So for me, that match stands tall. Corey, it seems like you have something to say.
Yeah, so every once in a while I get in the mud of, some of these Facebook wrestling groups, which I shouldn't do, but I like to have my mind blown every once in a while in a bad way.
Of course.
But a conversation that was being had was because I think you have to look at this 2 ways because I brought up WrestleMania, so this is my fault to begin with. But I think there's a difference. No, I think there's a difference between match of the year and moment of the year. Cody finishing the story, Mark Briscoe winning the title, those are moments of the year caliber things. Match of the year is Danielson versus Ospreay. The spectacle of night 2 main event and parts of the night 1 main event are bigger than life moments. I don't think anyone, if they put their true wrestling hat on, saying those were matches of the year. Those were spectacles of the year. Those were moments. More, and like you said, more storyline driven. And I think the story of this match is Danielson as good as he once was? And him losing matches outside of WWE, out of AEW, like losing to Zack Sabre Jr., losing to Okada, losing to Blue Panther, the matches he's lost lately are part of the story, but it's still, if you ask most people who the best wrestler alive today is, you'll get Shawn Michaels, you'll get Bryan Danielson, you'll get, Bret Hart, and you'll get Kurt Angle. Right now, I think he's the best wrestler I've ever seen, Bryan Danielson, but the best wrestler right now in 2024 is Will Ospreay, and that was proven on that night. And the story that they're telling is, which I think is going to lead into the Double or Nothing match, is the idea that Will Ospreay is great, but he's reckless, and he might have hurt the greatest wrestler of all time, which could come down to him not using a move, maybe in the Double Nothing match coming up, which we'll talk maybe down the line. But there was a story there. Was it the grand story of a 4-year epic of the Bloodline and Roman Reigns losing the title? No. But there was a story. And once again, I think there's moments versus actual match of the year. And like I said, I'm on my high horse as an AEW homer, sure. And like I said, I'm not taking anything away from WrestleMania, which I was there live. But this was a better wrestling match.
Definitely agree. I totally agree with that. Peeps, do you agree?
Without question, I'll set it up for you like this. I was at Dave & Buster's to watch the show, and there were a smattering of fans that were watching because most of the people that were there, they were there for a lot of the basketball and hockey games that were going on, playoffs, etc. But there were a couple of fans that were there to watch the show. I was able to sit down at the bar and watch it on the TV above me. And in the pit, they had the TV on the show, but there was no sound up until halfway through the pay-per-view. So they get to that match and they pump the sound up. I could not hear any of the commentary, but I could hear the crowd cheering. And when the bell rang, you got holy scat chants from the fans, and they didn't even touch. That had, as I texted you, big fight feel.
Yep.
That is literally how I went into this match. Like, I cannot wait. If anybody was half asleep, if anybody was doubting, what kind of match, they turned it up a notch and they slowly built it from the beginning and then stopped and then reversals and then stopped and then rest holds and then stopped. And they layered every single part of the match and made it make sense. And the part that Corey is talking about as far as that story is that they weaved different stories within that same match that have implications on both of these wrestlers going forward over the next few weeks and months. that story of will the Stormbreaker be used again? Does he need to use that reckless move? Because we remember he used that move on Kenny Omega last year at Forbidden Door. And we saw what happened, although the difference was that was a legitimate drop on the head to sell the move. This was worked. And Danielson has a way of selling injuries that reminds me of how Barry Windham used to sell, of how Ricky Morton used to sell. Dare I say it, Hulk Hogan would sell. Guys that knew how to sell and get reactions from the fans, and that story is going to be told. But from the beginning of the match to the end of the match, they went a half an hour of sheer in-ring wrestling bliss. And if you believe that there are wrestling gods out there, you were blessed to watch one of the greatest matches these eyes have seen. And we can go into the fact that it doesn't necessarily have to be the greatest match of all time. It doesn't necessarily have to usurp another match from another era. It can just sit in its own crystal ball, in its own snow globe of being itself, its own self-contained greatest match that you have seen so far this year. And you don't have to compare it to any other match and be happy with it. And that's where the wrestling fan tribalism kind of gets in play with a lot of people. This is where it has to be. I watched this match. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I want to see a rematch from these two. And I think the rematch will probably be even better if they can actually get that in there. I thoroughly enjoyed the match. Oh, man, it was great.
A1. Just
yes.
Yeah, and
Hot Rod
I
says this. Before you say anything, Corey, Hot Rod says this. He's like, Peeps Nails spent more money for once at the bar. I digress. They must just hate you, man.
I guess so. But hey, it is what it is.
Corey, what were you saying, man? I'm sorry, they had.
I mean, but you know,
guppies, man.
as that's once again got to stop reading the chat because you know I start giggling like a little schoolgirl as Peach Nate is talking. But once again, like we brought up with the Swerve situation, I am, like you say, you know, somewhat of a fan. We'll say, you know, a mark, whatever, for the elite brand of wrestling. But the follow-up, once again, I know that we showed like a couple of highlights of the match to get people to go run and, you know, buy the replay. But we had really, unless I missed it, there was no like update on Daniel Bryanson's condition. There was really the Will Ospreay, you know, just showing up in a gauntlet match, which wasn't even really explained well. I mean, there are for every. See, it's weird to say this. As much as I love AEW, which I do, for every 2 steps they take forward, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little while, they take another 3.5 steps back, and they go forward, they go back. And, you know, when you're Pepsi, you got to go and keep on having, you know, the brands. And is it CM Punk Pepsi? What are we doing here? No.
After what I saw, I sat there like, you're not even Pepsi, bro. You're more like RC Cola. Like, bro.
Well, you know what? In a moment. I don't know if we're talking about the comment or the segment, because
just the comment.
Okay.
Just the comment.
Okay.
Just the comment.
I thought the segment was actually done well, which
we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it more in depth later, but you can continue, man.
But just to get, because I don't know how much we're going to do, I would like to say that I got every match on the show correct, except the Kyle O'Reilly match, which we got the return of Adam Cole, who can walk. I don't know if he can actually wrestle anytime soon, but
well, he walked, but very gingerly. So I guess he's in the process of being able to weight bear more so than he has before.
Rodney P, the all-star of the chat, Taekwon's going to have to step up his game because
you said
occasionally I will say something negative about my brainchild. I love you. Hey, don't block me. No, but I thought what they did with the House of Black winning and pinning Edge like I had suggested on the show, I thought that was done very well. But once again, I understand the House of Black is a Collision. It almost feels like a Collision exclusive type of group, but looks like we're not going to get the real follow-up until tonight, which I think is a little bit of a mistake. I thought the show, like I said, I thought it was a tremendous show. I'm a little worried about this Mercedes and Willow situation due to the fact that I think we all know at this point that Mercedes is on a beat deal, which I don't think is a bad thing. But Willow, this is the thing I think I brought up last time. Willow being a transitional champion, for the story, it makes sense. But I think Willow, I know she doesn't have the body type that the typical female wrestler nowadays has, but the way she gets over with the fans, her in-ring ability, everything else, she should be someone that they're focusing on. And I'm hoping that she does not get lost in the Mercedes Moné hype train. But I thought their match was a little short due to the fact that I think Julia Hart's still hurt. If I was on the payroll, I'd be wearing a lot more than an elite jacket, which I had to pay for back in 2021. But I digress multiple times as this goes.
So first one of the show today.
Yes.
Good grief. But I mean, who knows? Franchise. We're just saying because I mean, if Meltzer's on the payroll for God's sakes, which I know he says that he isn't, but I mean, imagine, if franchise makes a good case for being on the payroll. We should try to at least petition to get him on the payroll.
There you go.
He sacrifices a lot of mutiny from us for him to go ahead and continue to support you guys. Put him on the payroll. Let him get paid.
There you go.
Man.
If I wasn't the punching bag of the podcast as a TNA guy, I mostly wouldn't be on. So.
Oh man, Hot Rod, really? The franchise is the new Uncle Dave. Oh gosh.
Wow. Well,
if that's the case, hopefully the made up numbers on how much he's worth on Wikipedia. Let's I'll take all that money in and shill as much as possible.
It's amazing that somebody like Meltzer can have his name because of what he's done turn the name Dave into a pejorative. I mean, think about that. That's literally what has become now of Dave Meltzer.
I won't say how I've listened to some of his podcasts because I'm not paying for it. I'll put it that way. But he's actually killed AEW a lot over the last couple of months, which doesn't get covered as much due to the fact that of the positives he does do. But I mean, I think the latest episode he did, he was basically ripping them a little bit of a new a-hole on their attendance and hot shot booking with everything in order to try to get this TV deal. So I mean, he is maybe more positive than the Jim Cornettes of the world, who's a total fraud. But he's not Mr. Pom Poms as much as he once was. So I mean,
wait,
we're all shooting the wrong way.
Corey, just to ask, because you kind of got me taken aback for a second. Did you just say with your voice that Meltzer's killing AEW?
Abso-effing-lutely, yeah.
Holy crap! We got the real Corey back. Holy crap! Corey, we left you, buddy. Oh gosh, it's no longer an AEW show. What? See, this is what Meltzer does to wrestling. This should tell you enough. Corey, we're playing with you, man. But
no,
I agree. I completely agree with you when it comes to the case of Meltzer going ahead. It's like sometimes the comments aren't needed, and it's it's more along the lines of he's looking to stir more controversy with arguing. And I guess he read Bischoff's book of Controversy Creates Cash. Because, geez, he's doing a lot of it through Twitter. And it has to sit there like, geez, man. Like, I think, what was it? Like, yesterday or the day before, he put out a newsletter saying that Dominic Mysterio needs Tommy John surgery.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I saw it through the group chat that I'm in with like Peace and Hot Rod. I'm like, oh gosh, go to Twitter. Dom's like, I don't need no effing surgery, and I'm sitting there like, Meltzer,
and it's
you're ruining your credibility.
Leonardo DiCaprio meme.
I'm not effing leaving.
Exactly. So that should tell you something.
I do wonder though. I think he does need surgery. He may not need Tommy John, but I don't think he was wearing the sling for just for effect. I think he is hurt, but I mean, who knows if? See, what the problem is, and we've all had this, in different aspects. Like in the real world, I work in the television industry. Sometimes it's more important to be first than to be right. unfortunately, with so many people in the industry now, with PW Insider, Sean Ross Sapp, Body Slam, like coming out with the Motor Machine Gun signing like a week and a half before Meltzer even realized it happened. So I mean, I think that's what has happened over the last couple of years with Meltzer, where there are so many more people in the industry now doing what he did more than just the onewrestling.com and stuff like that. That he's hearing stuff and he goes with it sometimes before he actually has it triple verified, like any good newsman used to do. It's the whole Twitter and the TikTok era, and this is nothing. Well, it is personally against your generation, phenomenal one, because you are the youngin. But it's no longer about being right; it's about being first. Unfortunately,
Of course.
I think that's what's happened to Dave Meltzer. Like I said, there are times where Meltzer gets it correct. There are times when Sean Ross Sapp gets it wrong. There's times when Mike Johnson gets it wrong. I mean, everyone gets things wrong, but because Dave Meltzer is who he is, and he was the leader of the industry at one point, people are going to pick on him. And also, like I said, how do you get a reputation? By taking out the biggest guy in the yard. And yes, Dave Meltzer looks like he shouldn't beat up anybody, but he is, for a long time, was the biggest dog in the yard. And now, the Sean Ross Sapps and everybody else out there are better at it, and people are going to take their shots.
Yeah. And a lot of people would rather put up a news story, get credit for it being there, and then get the retraction after the story is incorrect to keep their name and reputation up in the mind share of people so that they know where it came from. So some people would do that, and it questions your reputation at some point. But hey, we'll find out if that's going to be a trend. Knowing how the way the world is now, that's where a lot of people are headed in the industry, of getting something out there just to test the waters of, oh, I just found out something. Let people know. And then when you find it is wrong, oh, I make a retraction. I made a mistake. I jumped the gun. You're still getting attention for it because in any circle, you're going to get your name floated around anyway.
Absolutely. And the chat is just our top-notch game today. The phenom, Peeps Nate created the dictionary. Bravo. Bravo.
Dom, what a champion. Jeez. Here he comes with his Dominic Mysterio. He's a Dominic Mysterio shill, so I guess you guys have still things in common, so it's okay, Corey. I know you probably understand that one, but good grief. But look, with that being said, this marks the end of the first half of Same, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. When we go ahead and come back, we will get into our 2 questions for today on the show, and then our last topic for today. Just Tony Khan. Just Tony. And, if you looked at the title of the show, you would see, first topic, Tony's on coke again. So, look, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, stay tuned. Do not go anywhere because the second half of Saturday afternoon's main event is coming up next. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the second half of Saturday afternoon's main event. Out of Phenomenal One, to my right is the Peeps Nation. Down below me is the franchise Corey Richmond. We're here to give you laughs, good times, and all the wrestling news possible. So look, without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into our questions. You guys know if you guys want to send in a question, all you got to do is one thing and one thing only. DM us on Instagram at Saturday afternoons_main event. Send in a question. It'll be featured on the next episode of the show. So with that being said, first question comes from Long Island Isaiah. He says, Max Caster racking up suspensions like Joe Gacy racking up bookings at birthday parties.
Good grief.
Yeah. Could it be a storyline? Well, aside from your first comment, Long Island Isaiah, good. Oh, Lord.
It's Saturday afternoon.
It seems like it. It seems like it. Could it be a storyline? I think it could be. I honestly think this could be a storyline in the sense of Billy Gunn not probably wanting to put up with the Acclaimed anymore. And in the sense of Max Caster, I mean, he's been doing a lot to kind of go ahead and grasp that it's no longer about the group, and he's kind of like doing some selfish antics. That's what I'm getting from it. So I think it could be all involved in the storyline. If it's not, damn, he's getting the Bryan Danielson suspensions. Where
Yeah.
the fines at? But Corey, what are your thoughts on this?
Honestly, I'm going to pass this one along because I don't know much about this story for the first time in history. Don't have anything to say, but I mean, I'd be more worried about the constant suspensions of a Sammy Guevara for being in fights, and who knows the full story of what happened with Jeff Hardy, the referee. I think you guys definitely discussed it on the show. But like I said, I don't know that much about the Matt Caster situation. I will say their match at the pay-per-view was good, not great, and I'm glad to see that Bullet Club Gold has some actual stakes, hopefully maybe now in the game for the short term. But Peeps Nate, if you want to take this, because like I said, I don't know a lot about the story.
Yeah, it seems like he said something rather inflammatory at the pay-per-view during his rap.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to go ahead and look at that video, it will be in our Instagram reels.
Yes.
Just go to our Instagram at Saturday Afternoons _ main event. It will be
I won't repeat what he said, but basically what he did say is something that would get a lot of people in trouble if they were at a regular, normal 9 to 5.
Okay, I'll put it in this way. He said to Jay White, your whole gimmick is making me sick. Matter of fact, when I'm done with you, you're gonna have to tell the legal team about the taste of my.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the worst thing he's ever said, though? I mean, let's.
Oh, he said much worse in the past.
Not. He's done way worse. I mean, the Vince McMahon comments,
the OJ comments he made last week.
Yup, exactly. So I mean, honestly, he said worse. I guess the fact that he was about to say it, and like he was literally out the door with it, and like I guess Anthony Bowen was kind of like a little late on grabbing the microphone for him before he could actually like fully get out the word. Yeah, I guess it was just like late on their ends, but because he was the one who said it, I guess.
Yeah, go figure.
To it. I guess it's storyline wise, because I don't want to actually trust it and say, oh yeah, he's actually suspended. But then again, it kind of fits the direction, but I don't get how he could get suspended just for that. But if that's the case,
unless it's it's an accumulation of some of the other things that he said, because he has gotten in trouble with his raps before. And he said some political things. He said some borderline sexist things. And in trying to get himself and the team over with those raps, it gets to the point where Warner Brothers Discovery is kind of like, okay, we allow up to a threshold. You've gotten past that threshold. Now it's time for you to kind of be reeled in a little bit. And I think this is where that's coming from. If they want to make a storyline out of it, which kind of makes sense, you can do that. But if this is along the lines of what they're trying to do to try to kind of rein in some of the things that he said, the company's overall aura on camera is to push the edge, to push it to the edge, or sometimes go over it. So if that's the case, then it's going to look kind of weird getting him suspended or in any issues, letting him say certain things, but then letting other things go in the company.
And I guess I would just say and like I said, I'm learning some of this stuff as we talk, but if this was such a big deal and not like an internet story or something that's being done by the company to real interest, I would just simply put the idea of, unless we see that the match tonight, which I'm super excited for, the Grizzly Young Vets, I don't know if they've signed with AEW or if this is a tryout match, but Grizzly Young Vets are facing the Acclaimed tonight, which I think could be a really great match and a great addition to show how this tag team division is still top notch. If that match gets pulled, or if all of a sudden it becomes Billy Gunn and Anthony Bowens versus the Grizzly Young Vets, I guess no longer the Young Veterans, then I think this is a story. But if this match happens, I think it purely is the idea that it was a timing issue. Because you see a ton of times Bowens goes, and part of the gimmick is Caster's about to step over the edge too far, and he grabs the mic and he does. Everyone loves the Acclaim. So I think this is, maybe I'm wrong, but I think this is a big nothing.
That's what I'm saying. So I guess we're both along the same line. So you know what? Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. You know, maybe it's a big nothing. Maybe it's just a part of the story. You know, who knows? Whatever the case may be.
Young vets coming in tonight. It's gonna be a good time.
Exactly.
See, I
Well,
don't
then,
need everything WWE or NXT. I'm looking forward to it. Well, now that they're on the payroll, I guess it's okay.
There you go.
Exactly. Well, for their next and last question comes from Tombstone City Adam. He says, "Damn it, I see Adam Cole being able to walk on 2 feet. 3 days later, Hobbs is injured. I hope he has a quick recovery."
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
a really nasty injury. Hobbs and the IWGP Championship match on Wednesday. There was a spot in the match where he threw Moxley into the corner and went for what looked like a stinger splash. He came in too fast and a little bit too low, and his knee hit the bottom rope and buckled, and he went down and stayed down. And it looked like they were going to try to continue the match and go through a couple spots. Maybe he tried to kind of loosen up the knee, try to shake it out, see if that would work. Didn't help. And it just went right to the finish, and he had to be helped back to the locker room. I hope that it's nothing serious, but the way he went in there and the way he went down and the way he was holding his knee, it just didn't look good.
Yeah, it's one of those.
Yeah, I mean, it's very simple. You hope the best for him. Hopefully, Hobbs can recover. I mean, he isn't the youngest dude in the company by any stretch. Like, I forgot how old he is, but he is in his late 30s. Which if you look at him, you would never notice that. Just like a Tama Tonga, who's apparently 41. Our boy Eric Bischoff saying the youngin, but Eric Bischoff has his own problems. There's another subject. Again,
talk about
it. But as I see, I'm stealing. This is what happens. You steal other people's. No, it's not nice. But see, this is when you steal other people's
He's a gimmick thief.
Sting's gone. You get the buy rates go down. You got to use Stinger's move. No. Hopefully he's got a fast recovery. And then on that aspect, I don't know if you guys had a chance to see it on SmackDown last night with the Cody Rhodes.
Oh yeah,
he took.
I spoke on it. He looked like because I don't know if they were trying to go for double cutters.
It looked like he was going for a cut. It looked like Cody was going for a cutter, and it looked like Carmelo was going for that springboard clothesline at the same time. And I think they just mistimed it. Maybe they were going to do like they did with Ricochet and Logan Paul, where they would spring off the ropes and kind of meet in the middle.
Simultaneously,
and they mistimed it.
Because it seems like Cody kind of took long. They run over as Carmelo was literally about to go ahead and springboard off the second rope.
Yeah.
Cody was literally already running towards the rope himself, and just looking at it and seeing Cody kind of fall on the back end of the same shoulder of the same part of the arm where he had the torn pec, and seeing him grab it, it was like, okay, please tell me you're selling me or you're actually injured. Which one is it? Good grief. Yeah, that was kind of scary within itself, because I texted Peeps and I was like, well, is he okay? Well, do we think he's okay? And I haven't heard anything yet. I don't know if they're hiding something.
Yeah,
but it did look like he kind of.
I would think he's okay, because we probably would have heard something by now. So I think that going forward, maybe he got a little bit of a stinger. I don't want to speculate, but just based on the way it looked and the way he was raising his hand after the match, it looked like it looked worse than it was. Let's hope that that's what it was, as far as it just looking worse than it might have been.
Yeah. Ah, jeez. Well, look, in that case, ladies and gentlemen, that marks the end of our questions. If you guys have anything else that you would want to go ahead and speak on, or any other questions that you would want to go ahead and deliver to us, you guys know for a fact, all you got to do is one thing and one thing only. DM us on Instagram at Saturday Afternoons _main event. Send in the question. As I always tell you, it will be featured on the next episode of the show.
Well, not always.
I mean, Corey, in your case, you're on the show. Your questions don't have to be answered. No offense, but jeez, cut me some slack here.
Inside joke, always the best.
Always the best, man. Well, look, with that being said, we're here at the last part of today's show, and what we're gonna do today is that we're going to open it up with a video. Aren't these just the greatest moments when we get to open up a show with a video? I mean, geez, okay. Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, sit back, enjoy the ride. This is only just 30 seconds. And here it goes now.
in many, many, many years. We are like the Pepsi of pro wrestling.
Yeah.
And we're up against a really evil juggernaut. WWE is our competitor. That's who we're facing. AEW, like the Pepsi of pro wrestling. WWE's like the Harvey Weinstein of pro wrestling. And I'm really proud of what we do down here.
All right. I think.
And,
all right, Tony. All right, Tony. We're gonna hold on, real quick. What's the prognosis?
Yeah, that happened.
Corey, it seems like you're laughing. What's going on, bud? You good on your end?
Oh yeah, I just want to say something on this right off the top. It is, once again, like I've said multiple times during this podcast, Tony Khan sometimes is his own worst enemy. He's never been the greatest speaker to begin with. I thought what they did on Wednesday, I thought was a really cool gimmick. I don't know if it turns into the NWO or how all that will work. I mean, I do find it, and I believe this is Kate from Fightful.com put out a tweet, which I don't have in front of me, but something to the idea of, it's one thing if you say Vince McMahon was the Harvey Weinstein, which is absolutely understandable, but there's the same company that is paying Ric Flair on the payrolls, taking money from Woo Energy. It doesn't look great. I mean, I do think that there is an absolute double standard. Let me once again put on my AEW show hat on as I say this comment, that all the stuff that WWE in interviews said, shots they took at AEW during WrestleMania weekend, which have just gone under the covers and nobody, it's like, okay, it's all fun and games. And when AEW fights back, they're the bad guys. The Harvey Weinstein comment is a dumb comment. The reaction of Mike and Steve on NFL Network was basically, hey, we're doing a fun little interview here. Oh my God, what's going on? Someone cut to something else. Did he just say Harvey Weinstein? Oh my God. Like I said, is it most likely not the right words to use? Absolutely. But once again, Tony just can't keep his foot out of his own goddamn mouth. I don't think this is not a killer of AEW. AEW is not going away, all this other stuff. But I do find, once again, it is a little hypocritical, and I'm not saying you guys do it. It's a little hypocritical that for basically 4 straight days, anyone associated with WWE was going on the Pat McAfee show and taking shot after shot at AEW, and then they fight back. They're the bad guys. So I know it's 2 different things, but I think it all has a little bit to do with each other. Once again, Harvey Weinstein comment, dumb, but not the worst thing I've ever heard a wrestling company ever say.
Oh, of course not. Phenom says this. Can I type Vince McMahon? I don't even think we can say his name. Holy crap. I just broke the fourth wall.
Voldemort.
Exactly. But I mean, geez. Look at it this way.
It's just like Henry where you say his name and he appears.
It's like you can't even, like, Bloody Mary isn't even a shtick anymore. Like you like you go ahead and stand in front of the mirror, you say Vincent McMahon, Vincent McMahon, Vincent McMahon. Turn around 3 times, open up the lights. There goes Vince in the back with Andre the Giant in his head. Holy crap.
Wow.
I'm sorry. But look, in this sense, here's what's good that comes out of this, right? Tony sold the neck. Like the Phenom said, at least he sold the neck brace. That, for me, I was sitting there after Dynamite and I was like, it would be fun if he goes into the draft and they just show the draft room in Jacksonville and he's just sitting there with a neck brace on. Long behold, Tony Khan in a neck brace during the draft. I was like, amazing. And then, of course, NFL takes notion to it and they bring it up and I'm like, great. Good prognosis for the story. Great advancement. And it furthers it. Like Corey had said at the beginning of the show, maybe this is where the good out of putting out the CM Punk footage ties into the story. Although for me, I still feel some type of way about that due to the fact that it's like, you posted about Punk. Punk, you know, like, it's Punk. Like, you know, you like out of another company. Then, of course, you have like the UK laws that they kind of like went ahead and broke by going ahead and airing out that footage of that ongoing investigation that happened on London grounds. So it's like, you sit there and you're like, was it really okay? I get what they're doing with the story, but was it really okay? That's my problem with it. But then again, in your sense, Corey, yes, it does further the story because now he's a part of the elite. And it seems like they're trying to garner heat. Although for me, it seemed like everybody in Daly's place, which had bad audio that Wednesday, seems like they were happy. They were cheering for it. And then on top of that, they make it back up the ramp while Tony's laying lifeless in the ring. And you hear fans saying, whoop that trick, which for me was the most atrocious but funniest thing ever. Because I was like, Dave said that he's not over. He said that Trick is not that great. But somehow,
they said the same thing about, did you... Sorry to interrupt, but when Melo came out after being drafted last night, they were doing whoop that trick as well. So Melo may not be over either then.
That's what I'm saying. Listen,
or Trick is just freaking. Or Trick is just over like Grover, and we should just take the positive that WWE has a guy that they may be creating a star in Trick Williams.
Look, Trick is LA Knight in 2023. I can't surpass that. I can't.
Yeah, neither wrestles well, but they both are over like Grover.
Yeah, exactly, definitely so. But still, back to this in a sense, it just doesn't correlate to have Tony, and this is like back to Dynamite, which for me, it kills me. Willow gets a celebration after winning the TBS championship. Jericho gets a celebration, and he gets some type of cool segment with Big Bill, which he wants to be under the learning tree now. And this is after he wins the FTW championship, which is no longer the F the World Championship. It's the For the World Championship. I digress. I'm not even going to get into it, Corey. I'm not even going to get it. Thank you, peeps. Yeah, thank you. So, Swerve, your world champion, the first African-American AEW champion, doesn't get a segment, doesn't get no type of celebration, but instead gets an AEW world title eliminator match against one Kyle Fletcher, who hasn't won a goddamn match this whole year.
And it's the first match on the card. Okay, I just had to get that out. I had to get that out.
But Tony Khan allows himself to become a gimmick now when he said, I remember during AEW's inception that he said, oh, I'm not going to be the type to be showing up out here as a gimmick. That's not what this is for. AEW is for professional wrestling and professional wrestling only. None of that gimmick stuff. You just took a microphone to the to the kidneys, fell down, kind of like 3 seconds later you start to sell the stomach, and then you take a good Meltzer driver, which I guess it's renamed to the TK driver now. I
just feel bad that Nicholas split his pants during the.
Yeah, you noticed that too. Okay, I thought I was the only one, but.
I thought it was a great segment, though. But I mean,
it was. But I mean, for me, it's just like, where does Swerve tie into this? Where does Swerve get this type of publicity? And then they say, oh, you know what? We're gonna give him like the first 30 minutes of like Collision tonight after the NBA playoffs. Jesus Christ, not many people watch Collision. That's what I'm trying to go ahead and say. And I get what they're saying. Oh yeah, just to have that lead into it right after the playoffs, where there's gonna be close to 2 to 3 billion people, or maybe more, watching the game, who's gonna be like, oh, AEW's on television. I'll go ahead and sit there and watch. It's a black champion. Cool. I don't think it's gonna go ahead and get as much fair as you think it would have gotten had it been a much more bigger name. If it was like an Edge or something, you think you know me going ahead and coming off your TV screen, you're like, Edge, AEW champion. Okay, you know what? Cool. Let me watch. I've watched this match since 2005, 2006. Oh my gosh, I know Edge. He's wrestling again. Oh gosh, I need to see this. Something like that matter. I'm not saying that Swerve isn't a draw. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that, do they really think it's going to go ahead and do much for Swerve if they go ahead and put him on the first hour of Collision? Just saying.
Ratings for Collision have been better the last couple of weeks. I mean, we can't say that. And even in bad time slots, which I do not want to see 3 hours of any wrestling show. But this last 2 weeks of AEW doing this 3-hour format of Collision and Rampage have held stronger with the ratings. I mean, and we saw a couple of weeks ago when the Rampage lead-in was the college basketball Final Four. The numbers for that were the highest it's been in a while. And I mean, of course, all those numbers anyway are inflated WWE SmackDown having the lead-in of a Friday, football game, the numbers are going to be higher. Whenever you have live sports that people care about, your lead-in is going to be higher, even if it's an inflated number. We see every week with the Big Bang Theory that they start at like 1 million, and then as the show progressively goes, the number goes down. So, I mean, there will be a good, solid number unless you have a blowout of that first segment, which he'll be on. Do I think they should have gone and started off the show with Swerve with the microphone? Absolutely. And I don't think, as much as we all love Orange Cassidy and Trent and all that stuff, I don't think that was the right thing to start the show with. So, I mean, I think you were already at a downward projector, there. I mean, I love Kyle Fletcher. Kyle Fletcher versus Lee Johnson, which me and like 7 other people most likely saw, was one of my favorite matches of WrestleMania weekend. But you're absolutely right. On TV, Kyle Fletcher is a champion, but he's not portrayed that way. That's one of the big problems that they have had for the longest time. That's one of the reasons why I'm not upset that Athena's not on my television every week, because on ROH she's special, and possibly if she goes to AEW, she just becomes another cog in the machine. But I digress, because that's not exactly what we were talking about. But, I do get what you're saying. Strickland has made history. We're happy what they did with Willow, even though she's going to be more than likely a transitional champion. But like I said, I want to give them a chance, just like anything else, a chance to see how they rebound. And yes, I know that's a basketball reference with Collision on what they do with Swerve. If the segment with Swerve is a who cares about nothing burger, I'll be on here next week if I get the invite back again. Hint, hint, I'm available. I will go and say, what the hell are you doing with your champion? And I appreciate the fact all the interviews Swerve is doing outside of WWE. Yep. And even at the press conference, someone brought up the question to Tony Khan of the idea of, is there a way to incorporate all the stuff that Swerve's doing outside of the ring, where he threw out the first pitch at the Cardinals game? We could put that into the show. And he said, I'll see what I like any Tony Khan thing. He says, great question. I'll see what I can do in regards to maybe figure out how to get the rights to that. But I do think that I'm willing to give them a moment to see what they do with this Saturday as we get the Grizzled Young Vets on our TV, what they do with our champion.
Definitely so. Phenom says this. He's like, what's the average views for Collision? I know it's about maybe around 455, 456 within the last month.
Which is up from mid 300s. I mean, so
yeah,
that show has been that show will never reach what it did the first couple of weeks. That's every show. I mean, I guess, and this is going to be the TV hat brain talking for a second. As bad as the AEW number was this week, and there is the excuse of having the East Coast only. There was no West Coast. They weren't, on the West Coast 3 hours later. And you lose, a percentage of viewers. But the idea that they were still number 6, the top thing behind all sports, is when it comes to advertising, it comes to WMD, Warner Brothers, they're still happy with that. As wrestling fans, seeing 600 and something viewers looks like it's the end is near. Shout out, to Scarlett. But I don't, for the TV people, being number 6 for the night is still a very good number. For us, it sounds like, the world is falling apart.
I mean, it's still 400. I think they did 461 last week. That wasn't as too bad. I mean, it was a decrease, being that the week before that it was 468, but less than 7,000 viewers. I don't think it should be that bad of oh my God, they're in the dust. But,
I mean, look at WWE. I'm sorry to interrupt. My apologies. WWE Raw on Monday, and we could say it's The Rock.
Yeah, I lost 800K.
They lost a ton of. And so, live sports, real sports, or whatever you want to say, playoff time. As much as we say most Americans don't watch hockey, hockey does really well. NBA is killing it.
I mean,
with the NCAA,
I said this myself. I said this myself. I was like, look, you're having Philly versus the Knicks. Mm-hmm. In which 2 of those cities are wrestling cities. I know for a fact that if they watch professional wrestling, there's a good chance they watch professional sports as well, basketball being one of them. And on top of that, both of those cities are diehard for their teams. So when you go ahead and sit there and compare the playoff game to Monday Night Raw, which one are you watching? Oh yeah, that's right, the playoffs. I was one of them. I definitely don't even. I can't even go ahead and shoot that down. I didn't watch Raw until after. So for me, I sit there and I look at it like, look, you can't go ahead and put professional wrestling on top of sports. So in the case of like, the ratings that they're doing, I can't go ahead and get mad at that, especially when it comes to this thing of AEW. But I'm just saying in my mind, like, Corey, it's like Dynamite is your top rated show. That's where you have the most viewership on. If you have more viewership on Dynamite, then I would expect the world champion to go ahead and showcase himself on Dynamite, not Collision. So for them to go ahead and give
Like I said, the lead-in is going to be big. And let's be honest here. Every wrestling company gets killed by big events except one brand, which is amazing. And I give full credit to that audience of diehards. When there is sports or politics or news breaking, Raw is affected, SmackDown's affected, AEW Dynamite's affected. Only thing that is never affected, and they actually and they went up this week because they had the Trick Williams crowning moment. NXT is never affected by any other news event. You could have the results of a presidency, and they're still going to get 600K plus, and everyone else will be affected. I don't know how they do it, but NXT is viewer proof. Most weeks they get the least amount of viewers of all the major weekday shows, but their audience is there no matter what. And I'm full credit to them.
You got a point. Well, look, in this sense, from that, move to the draft. Tony Khan says what he says that we just heard. And instantly through my mind, I'm like, he did not just say that. So I sent it to Peeps. Peeps said that he had a lot to say. So Peeps, being that you are a well, I'll call you what the guys in the chat are calling you, the founder of Dynastores, goes hunting for rabbits, the man who looks like he's cold, doing the show from the outside of his home. Yeah, but Peeps, being that you're, our wrestling confidant, our co-host, the glorious deep voice Dynamo, and knowing that you had a rant coming for this specific, part of the show, I'm going to defer this to you, and I'm going to let you speak upon what you think all of this is and how you feel about it yourself. So the floor is yours, bud.
I think the best way to put this is you only get one chance to make a first impression. And the reason why I say that is if you're going to cycle it back from 2 weeks ago when the footage was shown, and we know the reason why the footage was shown. It had some ancillary side effects to the reason why it was shown. And it did drum up a small, modest amount of a ratings increase, as what AEW Dynamite was getting the previous 2 weeks were in the 720s, 730s. It bumped it up to about 831. And that's where they got as far as 831,000 viewers. So from that sense, it worked. And then the following week, the ratings dropped again. Going in to Dynamite, we have the highs from that Dynamite episode and then going into Dynasty. And Dynasty was a great show, as you heard me talk about earlier, as we all talked about earlier on in the show. And then we come off, and the anticipation is for those that watched Dynasty, it's going to be a great show. It's going to build off of what we saw happen, and it's going to kind of branch off different storylines and evolve others. And figuring at some point we're going to have the Jack Perry explanation where he fits in with the Elite, et cetera, et cetera. So we go in and we start off the show, and it's not, we have a new AEW World Champion, not a vignette to show clips, not to say we're going to do all of these things. It's going to be, we're starting off the show with the breakup of the best friends. That doesn't make any sense. We also talk about how with that being said, all it could have done was a matter of moving matches in certain areas so that the booking is booked differently. I saw a show that kind of lost the opportunity to make that first impression for those that may have heard about what happened at the pay-per-view Sunday, going in 72 hours later, what's going to happen afterwards. And they lost that opportunity. There was almost no mention of Samoa Joe or his importance other than Samoa Joe lost the belt, who I thought did a tremendous job in the 4 months that he's been AEW World Champion. Almost no mention there. And then, of course, as we talked about before, the actual aspect of having the importance of having the first ever in a 5-year history of a company, the first African-American world champion that you've had, with all of the trials and tribulations that went into how he won that championship. And there was barely a mention. There was no promo cut. There was no real celebration. And on top of that, the only person out of the group that seemed to do any talking was Prince Nana. And that was just to announce him coming into the ring. And of all places, Daly's Place, which is supposed to be basically the home hub of AEW, of their TV arm of the company, where they did most of their broadcasting during the pandemic. Not a single vignette, importance of. They could have had him go out and say, well, I did this. I want to thank the fans. None of that. They didn't tie any of that together. So you're already starting off on the bad foot with the fans that were expecting something more. So we'll fast forward through all of the stuff that we already talked about. We already talked about how Willow got her celebration and Jericho got his celebration. And of course, we go to the top of the show, or I should say the main event aspect of the show, in which they brought out the Elite and did what they did to kind of get over their gimmick as to what they're doing. The problem that I had with this is that, one, Tony Khan does not know how to sell anything. Tony Khan comes across as somebody that is trying still to be someone that is liked and trying to fulfill a lot of the things that he's tried to do as owner of this company, as a wrestling fan, by getting himself in. Now, with that being said, and what he did to kind of bring himself together, as far as he's going to be the focal point, knowing that they're going to bring together, as they announced later on in that show, that it was going to be Jack Perry meeting Tony Khan in the ring for whatever purpose. Here's the logical aspect that makes no sense, storyline-wise. If Tony Khan, who has publicly based his comments in saying that he blames Jack Perry for CM Punk leaving, why would he stand in the ring all smiles and happy to meet the guy that basically sabotaged his company from the inside, if that's the thought process going forward? They never really answered that part. The next part of the storyline, which makes no sense, is the fact that even after all of that happened, you got the hug, we saw what was going on, and then we got the swerve. Go figure. See how that ties into this whole deal. You get that swerve. There you go. And with that being done, Tony went from being the quote unquote face to literally being the heel. Because literally after he got beat up, I saw how many 4,000 fans at Daly's Place were literally chanting for the Elite and for Jack Perry, which I did not expect. Apparently, this is being shouted at in great anger at Tony Khan for the storyline that's going on, and for a lot of people, the ridiculousness of how it's being portrayed. On the same night that they announced that Kenny Omega was going to be on Dynamite the following week. So you got this whole stew going on of where we're going with this storyline, and everything else makes zero sense. And now, as you brought up, as we've talked about before, the entirety of what Tony Khan did with what he did on the NFL Network, wearing the neck brace, kind of leaning in. That part I got no problem with. He's really leaned in. But now what we're seeing is with his comments, Tony Khan, who is the person that I've talked about on this show as somebody that's trying to be liked, almost comes across as a heel, if you think about it. And now it's the idea of the way that this is being booked is starting to make it's starting to become a kind of focal point where it's either going to be going towards the situation of building for the next few months as far as what the elite are going to be. Are they really going to lean into this authority figure idea and go in that route? How are they going to be portrayed going forward with other championship chances? What are they going to do with Jack Perry going forward? I don't know if this is something that they're looking for as that next big story and how they're going to progress it. But the way that it was progressed and the way it was shown, they were clowned all week long. From the day that it happened to the previous stuff that happened with the footage. As we've all talked about, they didn't need that footage to advance the storyline with Jack Perry. But apparently, because of all of the things that have happened and the way that the fans reacted, I guess they want Jack Perry on their TV to kind of accentuate the story. And what I will ask you, Phenomenal One, where do you see this storyline going forward, how they've advanced it, the way they've advanced it, and did it make any sense in the grand scheme of things as to how it came about and how this makes Tony Khan look?
So where are we beginning it then? Where exactly are we beginning this at? The minute that they show the footage?
You could start from the beginning with the footage and then progress it forward to what you think it's doing.
Okay, well, look at it this way. First and foremost, just back to like the NFL thing. It's just it's mind-boggling because you go on a network of a company who's working with the WWE and producing championship belts for respective teams. And I guess the only reason you were pissed was because they got rid of your Jacksonville Jaguars belt that you probably could have been making good revenue on. Just saying, Corey. Corey, I'm joking with it. Come on, man.
There you go.
I just want to be able to respond. I'll let you. I just want to be able to respond to the great words and that Pete Nate said. Once you're done, that's all I'm. That's all I'm asking.
Got you. Well, look. In a sense of where this story coexists and like how it, correlates to the rest of it. As I said, if it came down to trying to go ahead and bring him back, I am under the impression that there was some type of way that it could have been done without the video. That's just me. That is just me speaking. I still feel in my mind that there are so many different ways you could have went about this. Where if you just brought him back, literally within the span of going ahead and costing them the titles. If, as I said, the timing is what makes it impeccable. Now look, if you had told me that Jack goes ahead and costs FTR the titles at AEW Dynasty, they don't foreshadow a return from him, nothing like that. You just, out of nowhere, Perry comes in, throws Dax off the ladder, helps Matt go ahead and get the titles and the story. Now, if you were to tell me this week or the week after, they were to go on to Dynamite and say, okay, you know what? Here's why Jack did it. Because he wanted to help us when you guys had this happen during this time of the year. If you were to go ahead and release it then, I probably would have sat there like, well, damn, they released the pump footage. But geez, now they're trying to tie it into the story. Now this makes perfect sense. When we saw the video go ahead and, air, it was because of after the MMA hour. And we know that's why. In retaliation, I get it. He throws fire, you throw fire back. I get it. I get it completely. But once more, within the story development of it, I don't feel as if it was the right time to go ahead and do it, because they did it around a time where they were just like, okay, you know what? Let's just do this just to do this. You know? So in the sense that if they did it now, I would have been like, huh, now I see what they're doing with this. And then let's say next week, you know, if Kenny Omega wasn't going to be showing up in Winnipeg or something like that, then you go ahead and you do the churn. Then you go ahead and, you're like, Tony Khan, reinstate me. Because as you can see, as per the footage, I did nothing wrong. You know, something like that. You know, then you do the swerve, the story. But I get it. It kind of ties in due to the fact that now he got to sport something. He got to sport a neck brace at the draft. People were looking at him like, oh my gosh, he's actually doing it. And then, of course, gains more publicity. So it's working in some stances. But for me, as I said, it's just like I look at it and I'm like, the benefit of doing this in the first place, of just releasing the video, is what got eyes and attention to this thing. And yes, eyes and attention through whatever way, shape, and form is great. But when they did it like that, I just sat there like, okay, this comes to me as very, I'm going to go ahead and quote the Phenom real quick, because he said this exactly to me as well. It's very Bush League, in a sense, to go ahead and do it in that around the time that they did it. When it comes to like doing it, oh, you know what? Night after night one, you know, instantly. Collision's on, okay, you know what? Let's go ahead and put up. And for me, you, Corey, I guess you were probably getting back to your hotel. Were you even worried about Collision at that time? Did you sit there and watch it? Or like, were you above the mindset of like, okay, you know what? I'll probably like catch up on it like later in the morning. What did you do?
I was at the casino and watched it the next day. But
so that's just me. Here comes the AEW show. The minute the cap comes on, you know what's happening. You don't have to take it off.
No,
Listen, we're not calling you out, man.
No. Let's just say. Let me start with this. Not everyone in the world is Switzerland like J. Cole when it comes to this. You know, like the Chris Brown and all the other stuff. You know, going on in the hip hop game right now. But the idea, and I think I said this on the podcast before. Not to get political, but one of the major reasons why people like former President Donald Trump, some people say the same, some people don't, is because he fights back. Is he a scumbag and, you know, most likely should be going to jail at some point? Each to decide. But the peeps, like I said, I respect what your point of view. Let's go a couple of points here. One, the moniker, and you could say it's still BS, but the moniker of AEW right now is we're the best wrestling. Your champion comes out. Our company is based on wrestling. We want to see why he is the best wrestler in the world right now. Unlike when, and this is, I'm just using this example, it's not a shot at WWE, but Cody finishes the story, he starts Raw, and we have a 45-minute diatribe of how everything is great and The Rock coming up, and very well setting up most likely WrestleMania 41 or SummerSlam. Totally get that. And like I said, I disagree on what they did, but I'm trying to say, I understand the idea of our champions are known for wrestling, their champions are known for cutting promos and wrestling when they get a chance. And yes, that's a shot at Roman Reigns, your former champion. I get that. That's one. Once again, I agree. I would have given him the mic. And this next statement is going to sound, I want to make this as well as I can. The majority of your NBA audience is African-American because unlike every other sport, it's the largest amount of African-American athletes are in there. So you're going to most likely have a lot of African Americans who have never watched AEW or given it a chance will go and see the first image they see on their screen is someone proud wearing that championship just like them, just like when Kofi won the title, representation matters. You know, when Bill, as much of a scumbag as Bill Goldberg has turned out to be, when Bill Goldberg won the title as being Jewish for a half a second, I was like, nice, you know what, that's cool. Diamond Dallas Page, you know, there's not as many, you know, Jewish athletes out there as, you know, African-American athletes. But the idea of the fact that you're going to have a higher African-American audience than you most likely have on a normal basis, the first image they see is your proud black champion with that title in the ring is a win. Once again, I would have gone and had him talk. But I can get the idea. And there are some people saying this is a backtrack. They didn't even show a graphic for it on Wednesday. Totally get that. So that's that. And like I said, I'm not saying you're wrong, Pete, on the idea that they should have given him the microphone and been able to talk. When it comes to the story with the Elite and Jack Perry, Once again, everyone says AEW doesn't do storytelling. They did a storyline. The storyline throughout the whole entire show was Jack Perry coming back. I disagree with the Phenomenal One and the idea that you could have had him just talk or show the finish later. The average, and we always talk about the marks and the diehards know everything that's going on. And we always say that, Twitter is 1% of your audience, if that much. They're just the vocal majority that hear things. But the idea is that the average person, if they saw at this point Jack Perry just cost the FTR title and then randomly talking about something, would have no idea why we should care about Jack Perry. By showing the footage, Jack Perry became relevant for the first time in not 8 months, in years. The only reason why people cared about Jack Perry, and you could still say, even now, maybe they won't care about him, is because of the Tarzan Boy music. It's the only reason anybody cared, or the fact that his father was a famous actor, R.I.P. By putting him in this situation, you have a chance, will it work, who knows, to create a star. I think Okada's done a great job as a heel, a television heel in a short term. There are many problems with AEW. The idea that you brought in Will Ospreay, Mercedes Moné, and Okada, and the ratings have done nothing but gone down. There is problems there. But you got to take chances. I'm hoping I'm wrong, but there's a good chance. What is this? This is the NWO. And what happened? Nash powerbombed Eric Bischoff through the stage, and then a month later we found out that Eric Bischoff was behind the whole type thing. I'm hoping we don't go in that direction. I've heard people online saying that's where they think this is going. As little Tony as possible on my screen is the better. Not as much as a Chris Jericho being on my screen annoys me, but times change. 5 years ago, Tony Khan said he was never going to release anybody. Unfortunately, that's happened. If he's an every week character, there's a problem. If this is done to go and promote a storyline, let's see how that works. Once again, I said the Harvey Weinstein comment was dumb. He most likely should have said something slightly different, especially the fact that on paper, it's Triple H, Nick Khan, we're under new management. It's no longer Vince McMahon. Same idea. Vince McMahon went on interviews and almost killed, Bob Costas, 25 years ago.
Billionaire said.
Yeah, I remember that.
I mean, so like a lot of the stuff that is done, and I started this whole thing out earlier, and like I said, it comes out like just pro AEW no matter what happens, but I love to get your guys' opinion. Do you give any fault to during WrestleMania week when every single chance you had Pat McAfee said, when he interviewed Rhea Ripley, said, you should get rid of Don, and Rhea goes, why? Says, well, if she was there, there'd be 600 people, talking about him, basically an AEW shot. Grayson Waller saying the idea that we're finally going to get something good when it comes to wrestling in Jacksonville, which is great. They're shots. Who cares? But when AEW does it, or when from the beginning, when the Hall of Fame for DX, and they said, the piss hand company and all these things, they're a blip on the radar for 5 minutes. But when AEW, once again, like a Donald Trump or all these other crazy people go and actually fight for their own company, they're the bad guy. And I think we should be also saying the idea of taking shots during WrestleMania week was lowbrow, and they should get some little bit of trash for that. I mean, that's, like I said, all what I said, you could say is BS. Who cares? It should have been done better. And of course, Swerve should have get his flowers, and hopefully they don't F it up on Saturday.
I think first and foremost, AEW missed a huge opportunity. As I said, you only get one chance to make a first impression. They had an awful show after for Swerve, in the sense that there are so many things, merchandising, t-shirts, vignettes. They could have branded certain parts of the show. We're going to show you bits and pieces of this. No one is saying that Swerve had to come out and do a 25-minute coronation speech. But to exactly have, after having this long, protracted feud, coming from the Continental Classic Championship Tournament, going into the Adam Page feud, then transferring it from Paige back to Joe, and then putting Paige back in that feud for Paige to go away, and then for Swerve to get back on track with Samoa Joe. To not only acknowledge Joe as the champion that he is, because think about this, kind of on that same Cody deal. When Cody in his first interview as champ, one of the things that he did in his speech was give credit to Roman Reigns. Swerve didn't even have that opportunity. Swerve did not have the chance to show people in the moment that at the beginning show after the pay-per-view that we're going to acknowledge you for something that, let's really be honest about this. AEW, they don't change world champions often. Outside of injury, world champions hold on to championships for quite some time, which is, as far as I'm concerned, the way it's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. The problem is you miss that opportunity to drum up the importance. Once again, as you've heard me say before, AEW should always be the complete antithesis of WWE. Whatever WWE does, you do the opposite. But to this extent, the WWE have not put the belt on too many African Americans in wrestling as far as that, outside of the Kofi Kingston run, which happened how many years ago? We're talking, 4, 5 years now? And going forward, AEW, this is their first chance to do something big, and they drop the ball. And that is something you cannot get back. You cannot get another first time again. We've had the first 3-time AEW World Tag Team Champions. We have a first 2-time whatever championship run. And now you have a first African-American AEW World Champion who will not get that moment back because they decided, which makes no sense, to not only have him wrestle first, but to wrestle a guy, if this is supposed to be believed about records, against a Kyle Fletcher, who is a gifted athlete, really good wrestler, only seems to wrestle on TV for Ring of Honor because Ring of Honor doesn't have a TV deal. And every time he's wrestled in AEW this year, he's lost. Sure. And you're going to explain to the people that just want to see wrestling that this one guy who's 0-5 going into a match with your newly crowned world champion has a legitimate chance to actually beat him on television, and then he'll get a title shot afterwards? Makes zero sense to me.
Can I say just one thing on this? I just want to make sure. And once again, I don't fully disagree with you. I just want to make sure that's totally understood here. Mm-hmm. If you think about it, anything that happens on your show on Wednesday is going to be overshadowed by your big angle at the end of the show.
That's understandable. Yeah.
So as a result, if that's going to be the case, why get the first time this historic championship for an African-American champion? Why have that overshadowed by this, hopefully for the company, big-time NWO style storyline that could be the next thing for the next 8 to 10 months? Why have that? Why have that be overshadowed? Why not give him his own night? That's all I'm saying. And like I said, I don't disagree with you fully, but I can understand the idea of this night was to get the storyline of what this company might be doing for the next 8 to 10 months with your NWO style thing. And then on Saturday, when you have that lead in, which we could say, if they get, 200,000 people, which I think that would actually be horrific, of course, but if they get 200,000 people watching for Collision, then of course it's even worse. But if they get a good number, and that first image, once again, when you have a larger African-American demographic going to be watching the NBA and hopefully will tune into your show, and the first thing they see, and yes, you got the Grizzly Young Veterans coming in and some other stuff, but your big thing will be Swerve Strickland, Swerve Scott, however you want to say it, Kill Shot, is the first image you see on your TV after that big audience of NBA fans who stick around or don't switch immediately. I think that's his moment. Would it be great if you had an NBA game on Wednesday leading in? Sure. But you have this lead in. Maybe you should have spoken twice, sure. But Let's see if they F this up tonight. That's all I'm saying. Give them a moment to see if they don't F it up.
And this is where I'm going to disagree on that point.
Sure.
This is why. As I said before, you only get one chance at a first impression. If the importance behind Swerve was first African American to be world champion, Warner Brothers Discovery should have had commercials going forward highlighting watch Dynamite. We're going to have the first African American world champion shown on TV. He's going to come out. This is what you should have done for Dynamite. You're going to have your first ever world champion is going to be on the show. If you're going to have him wrestle, okay, fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But what they should have done, if they wanted to start off the show with what they did with the Elite and that storyline that was going to be the quote unquote main event angle going in, I don't have a problem with that. The first thing they should have done is that best friends breakup should have happened later on in the show. They has no need to start the show off with that.
100%.
Number two, what they should have done is start off the show with Swerve coming out, saying a few words, talking about how important it was, acknowledge what happened at the pay-per-view, and acknowledge the fact going forward, this is a new era of Swerve, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to have a match later on so you can see whose house it is. You give them 10 minutes, 15 minutes, somewhere in that neighborhood to explain that. You get the media, you get the ideas, you show what happened, and then you move on. You do the other stuff. You start the 9 o'clock hour with Swerve in his match. You give Swerve his time to have wrestled at the 9 o'clock hour or 8:50 or whatever the demographic change is going into the next hour. And you fulfill that without totally disrupting everything, because out of all that chaos, that's something that's supposed to be the most important, regardless of the storyline. The most important figure in your company is supposed to be your world champion. And they failed their world champion in that sense. The same way that I don't like seeing in a title match the world champion coming out first, they failed their world champion, their new world champion, by just having him in a throwaway match after he wasn't even at the top of the show. You started the angle that was going to be at the end of the show. And then the first wrestling in-ring deal that they did was Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends breaking up. That's where that is completely makes zero sense to me as far as the booking order and how they did that. And I think to say that they should wait until they have an opportunity as the NBA leads into Collision, they've missed an opportunity already. I understand the point of where you're coming from, but they've missed their opportunity and they can't get that opportunity back. And that's the problem.
Well, we'll definitely see. I mean, last thing at least I would say on this is twofold. One, I agree with you that starting the show with the Orange Cassidy thing was the wrong idea. But if you're looking at it as a TV guy, which, like I said, a lot of stuff I come across from as a wrestling fan, but also working the TV industry, is that as much as we all can't stand right now Jericho, the people who get the highest ratings per segment on AEW are Orange Cassidy, Chris Jericho. I believe right now it's Tony Storm, who, just because we didn't get to talk about it, I thought the best match that Tony Storm has had as champion so far was that Tony Storm Thunder Rosa match, and the Thunder Rosa promo leading up to I thought was tremendous.
Yes.
Theory of your, and then I believe Joe was a pretty big mover right now. I'm sorry, and Moxley. Your four biggest people, are like I said, are Orange Cassidy, Moxley, Jericho, and I believe Tony Storm are your four biggest people. So the idea of starting off your show with a proven draw in Orange Cassidy, I get the idea. I would have not done it. But then the other half, and the second point of this is AEW only had 4 matches, which they usually have more. They only had 4 matches on the show this week. I don't know how long the Learning Tree segment was. And
I think it was 10 minutes. I think that segment alone was about 10 minutes.
So is that what you do? You cut out the Learning Tree segment and then
I don't know if you cut it out or minimize it to some degree, or it could, like I said, you could have moved it around in certain areas, because even though that's the case, I think a lot of people, and this is something that I've talked with the Phenomenal One about, is that a lot of times when Jericho comes on TV, from what I've noticed, I see the complete opposite. I see people changing the channel once Jericho comes on television, which is one of the reasons why he keeps changing his gimmick and changing his persona all the time. It's the learning tree, you know. And by the way, that's the other thing. This learning tree thing, what are they doing? It's you. This is the issue that I have with Jericho. It seems like Jericho is trying his best to continually to lean into the fact that the fans are starting to get tired of him on certain levels. So he kind of refreshes himself and changes his personality. But my thought process is, unless Ricky Starks is either hurt or not going to compete, what on earth does Big Bill need to kind of suck up to Chris Jericho for? That, kayfabe wise, makes zero sense to me.
I think it's all. I don't disagree with that. I do think, though, and this is, like I said, my TV brain going. Are we going to cut the Will? Are we cutting out the Willow segment? Are we cutting out the women's match? Are we making that from, like, what was it, 8? I think the match got, what, 8 minutes? I can tell you for sure. Got 8. The Mia Anna Jay match got just under 9 minutes. Are we cutting that down to like 3 minutes in order to get the promo in? Are we lessening the Swerve match from 14 and a half minutes to 10 minutes to give an extra 5?
The Swerve match didn't even need to be as long as it was. If they were going to put it on the 9 o'clock hour, that Swerve match, if you're going to showcase this is your world champion and you don't want to mess with the timing of that, okay, fine. That makes sense. He's your world champion. But yet at the same time, there are other parts of the segment that could have happened. And the crazier part about it is the IWGP Championship match had to end earlier because it looked like they wanted to go much longer until the Hobbs injury. So you had that. But still, there are certain aspects that they could have done. Like I said, that Orange Cassidy segment, that didn't have to lead the show off. And that segment in and of itself, I believe, was about 7 or 8 minutes. So they could have moved that later on in the show and kind of shrunk it a little bit. That segment didn't have to be as long as it was. Because then they could have taken that, if they wanted to lengthen it, put it on Collision or put it on Rampage and then stretch it out then. Because like I said, it's the importance of the guys that are there. If you're only going to have 4 matches, then you prioritize the quality over the quantity. And if the quality is supposed to be, we've just crowned a brand new world champion, that should be the important thing to start the show off with. Not having a segment with Orange Cassidy and the best friends breaking up. That's probably more for me what drove me insane about most of the things that happened during the show.
I don't disagree. Like I said, and I apologize. I know we're rambling on here. I apologize, but I do. Once again, I agree with the majority of what you're saying. I'm like, my TV brain understands kind of what they did. And if you wanted, and if part of your argument was Swerve should be speaking twice, both.
No, just one. Bring him out at the beginning of the show to acknowledge everything, and then he'll have his match at the 9 o'clock hour to promote that he's going to wrestle, because nobody knew that Swerve was going to start the show off. And that's something that could have been done. This is why I'm saying they could have promoted this in the sense that we just got a brand new world champion. Put it in commercials. Swerve is going to speak or show about the importance of his championship. He's going to wrestle later on that night. They could put that in the ads that they bump all over TBS and TNT and the Turner networks to get advertising for it. 100%. They could have done that. They didn't.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, I think this was a great conversation. I'm glad that you guys had me on this week to go and quote unquote defend the undefendable. But it's each one of these is interesting. I mean, I can't believe in 2024 I brought up, even though I haven't listened to rap in a long time, a rap feud. Look at me, I actually know something. But I like I said, Peep, I don't disagree with you, but I do understand, and I am crossing both fingers and a couple of toes, which I'm not going to show them on camera because people have to pay for the wiki feed. But I try to get the phenomenal one every once in a while. Some of the like ridiculous dad jokes, but no kids that I know about. But the idea, the fact is, I want to see how this plays out. You're not wrong. They most likely should have put him on to talk, but I want to see how this plays out on Saturday. I want to see what the NBA lead-in does. Hopefully, if we do have a chance to talk next week, we have something positive to say, and we're all hoping that everything works out. Because in the long run, we're all wrestling fans. We want everyone to succeed, except for the NWA, because that's a nightmare.
Screw Billy Corgan. I'll just say that. Ended on a high note,
EC3.
right?
Yeah.
What the heck is a Tyrus? Anywho, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, look. As the lights dim.
Yes.
On me, for God's sakes. How does that happen? I don't know. You know what? I'm not even going to go ahead and worry about it.
TK is coming for you.
He heard me. Now he's mad at me. It's okay. I'm not even going to go ahead and stress it. But look, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, with the lights dimming on me, I guess it's easy to say that this marks the end of Same. Wow, they cut the lights on the host. That is insane.
Yes.
Look at, you know what? It's okay. But look. It's okay. With that being said, we'll see you guys next week for episode 14 here on Saturday afternoon's main event. You got the franchise down at the bottom. I, the phenomenal one.
And I, the Peeps Nate, where we came.
We saw.
And in the words of the great Hall of Famer Paul Heyman, we conquered!
Have mercy.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we conquered. See you next week for episode 14. It's the franchise. It's the phenomenal one. Right beside me is the Peeps Nate. Peace. Love. Farewell.